In the movie The Long Night, a young woman and her boyfriend venture into the deep American South in an effort to find her birth family. Instead, they find themselves caught up in a nightmarish cult hell-bent on unleashing an evil entity to rule the world. That escalated quickly. In this video, we will look at the mistakes the characters make, figure out potential alternatives, and attempt to beat the satanic cults in The Long Night. Oh, and if you are ophidiophobic, you might want to skip this.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Let's go. The Long Night just recently came out this year, got an IMDb rating of 3.7 and stars some decently well-known actors. I wasn't really sure what to expect going into this. 3.7 isn't the most inviting rating, but it had some really funny moments and pretty good cinematography. Now, we follow Grace, a young woman searching for her birth parents and her super preppy boyfriend, Jack. Grace's only clues are that she is from the South and that she has been in connection with a man named Frank, who says that he will help her locate her parents. As a surprise, Jack tells Grace that he wants her to meet his parents in the Hamptons on their drive down to the South. Now, Grace is overjoyed and everything seems to be working out for the couple. But immediately after the trip, Grace has some beef with her boyfriend, upset that he didn't go to bat for her during the dinner with his super uptight parents. Well, can't blame her on that one. Things are awkward for them for the rest of the trip until they arrive at Frank's house, which we will later learn was originally built as a plantation and well, it's just a little bit creepy if you ask me. Now around the house there is a whole lot of nothing. Not gonna lie, but this is like one of my biggest fears, okay? Being stuck in the middle of nowhere, far out of reach from a nearby town or hospital and with limited cell service. Sure, it's a cliche, but it doesn't make it any less scary. Frank isn't at home today, but he has left the key and Grace finds it right where he said it would be. She opens the door, but Jack feels that this is a bad idea. Exactly.
It's true.
Now they walk around the house, all decked out in Southern style, and it's pretty clear that Jack does not like it. And as much as Jack hates it, Grace seems to love it. Grace goes for a run, because that's what you do when you are in a foreign place and it's about to get dark, of course. And Jack stays back at the house, but eventually also goes out for a smoke, putting his AirPods in and blocks off one of his primary senses. Another thing you apparently do in the middle of a forest when you have no experience with wildlife. Firstly, leaving the city for some nature. I wouldn't want to overshadow the natural silence of a forest with music plugged into my ears, right? Furthermore, as stated before, blocking off one of your primary senses is rarely a good thing, unless you try to ignore a bunch of obnoxious people on your public transport, but that's not the case right here. At the same time, Grace finds a snake and slowly backs away. Don't worry, if you don't like snakes, it only gets a little bit worse, you know. At the same time, Jack stumbles on some random junk that he calls hillbilly art installation. But honestly, that's not all that bad for the South. I have seen whole-ass cars left out in people's front yards. Maybe the animal skull is a bit disconcerting, but did I mention that Oklahomans often leave upside-down catfish hats on their barbed wire fences? I mean, that will teach those fish never to come on land. Grace gets a weird call on her phone. Bad reception, feedback noise, you know the drill, right? All that juicy things you experience in a forest when you're alone and it's about to get dark. She walks into the kitchen, sees a creepy figure in the distance, jumps back, sees a snake on a counter, and drops the glass. Now, I'm not saying that she's under-exaggerating, but one time I woke up with a snake on my chest and I screamed a little louder than that. Jack comes back from smoking, sees Grace in pain, and helps her pull out the glass from her foot. He tells her about what he saw in the woods, and she dismisses it as a Southern thing.
Anyone see my cowboy boots? They're monogrammed.
That should hold you over, but you need stitches. I'm gonna get you to an ER.
Yes, totally.
Jack, we just got here. Can't leave.
Nope, we can't. Now, despite this, Jack does his best to convince Grace to leave, but to no avail. He ends up showering and she falls asleep. Her phone glitches and she starts breathing heavily, going in and out of reality and having a nightmarish kind of sensual, almost sexy vision. Well, Jack hears noises but can't get out of the bathroom, the doorknob is stuck. He calls for her, but yep, she is deep in a dream and Skullface makes sure she stays that way. Her eyes go white and she sits up. Now Jack finally breaks through the door and Skullface has disappeared. He pleads with her to leave and she finally relents. Cause she's got glass in her foot, she can't walk, let alone run. Now Jack carries her downstairs and then goes back upstairs to collect her things. He can't find either of their phones, saying that hers wasn't there and his has also disappeared. Now Grace, of course, assumes that he's just being dumb, but Jack doesn't care and just wants to get the hell out of here, which we can't blame him for, right? Now he goes out to put the bags in the car, but on the porch just outside the front door is a dead squirrel inside a pentagram. Okay, this bothers both of them, but Jack is more determined than ever to leave right now. He finally reaches the car, but it doesn't start, which of course is terrifying at this moment. Because let's be honest, they're stuck in the middle of nowhere with a dead car and phones that don't work. Grace can't walk and there is no way Jack's gym muscles will be able to carry her to however many miles it is back to some kind of civilization. And because all of that isn't enough, a group of skull faces and black hooded figures appear holding fire in their hands and staring at Jack and Grace on the porch. Our characters retreat to the kitchen and try to call the police, but the service disconnects before they can reach anyone. Now with another blood pentagram on the window now, which proves that those people on the front porch are seriously into art, Grace notices that the door off the kitchen is cracked open. And because you have only been surprised by a bunch of psychos in black hoods on the front yard, it is especially important to check out the backyard as well. She wanders outside to the back porch and finds another group of cultists. Now Jack calls them out, right? Thinking they're just a group of psychos having their fun with a couple of tourists. And, well, continues playing the frat boy card.
And my dad's a litigator and he'll you up in court. And your hat looks stupid!
Now, I can't, blame him for that. I mean, it's a scary situation. You have no other means to protect yourself other than kind of blowing yourself up, right? At the same time, Grace has some freaky visions and a bad gut feeling, and tries to get both of them back inside. Now, say what you will about this movie, but Jack's freaking funny. Now, Jack answers the phone and the voice tells him to hand over the girl. They don't want him, and that he has until the morning. Jack doesn't do this, of course, and that's his mistake. Great boyfriend material, terrible survival instinct.
They don't teach the shit at Princeton.
Now there is noises at the door and Jack arms himself with a fire poker. The guy reveals himself to be Frank's brother Wayne, who has no idea what they're doing in the house. Wayne and Jack go at each other and neither one is letting go.
Who the you are and what's going on here? I'm gonna start swinging this thing.
Try me, pal. I'm a black belt.
A black belt in what? Trespassing?
Now Wayne tries to start his car, but it's no longer working. He calls the sheriff, but the call drops and the inbred gang rears its ugly head again. He says there is a gun in the house and goes upstairs to get it, instead finding the decomposing body of Frank. In a rage, Wayne rushes outside intent on killing the cult for his brother's murder. Jack and Grace watch from the window and one has to wonder why on earth they're not using the gun. From their vantage point in the house, they could aim past Wayne and shoot the men. They're not that far away and it's likely that they could hit all of them fairly easy. There's supernatural weirdos? Well, in that case, it's over. Yep. Well, Wayne crawls up to the porch begging for help, but there is nothing they can do, so they watch as he is further distorted and bleeds out. Grace retreats once again, voices and screaming in her ears, and nothing she can do to get rid of them. Jack enters, seeing her like this, and her eyes go wide again. She has more visions, a flashback of her and Jack back at home, and then his face is replaced with Skullface. Before Jack shakes her awake and she realizes that she is still at the plantation, Jack decides to get the gun and bullets as the cult lights up a bonfire outside. Now Grace hears the phone ringing and the cult speaks to her through it. Jack rushes back in and comforts her, and the two proceed to finally get the gun. Now one of them makes it through the window and Jack fights him off. They're eventually able to shoot the guy and he goes down, which is a very good thing and important to remember, because it means that the rest of the cult can also be taken down with physical means like bullets. This is a big win here, right? It means that the enemy has a weakness. They can bleed. And everything that bleeds can die, so thumbs up for this discovery. Now they also find a book written in Latin which Jack can read because of his years at Catholic school. He then translates the ancient curse of the demon serpent Uctina. A fake history lesson recounts the horror that Uctina wrought on the pilgrims when they first landed in America, and Uctina was only defeated by the efforts of a tribe of warrior Indians. After some more black magic, they chained the demon to the land so that his spirit couldn't break free past the plantation. Uctina's followers plan to unleash him by binding him to a physical form, but the ritual will only work during the vernal equinox, which happens to be around the time our characters came down here. Now before they can finish reading the rest of the book, Skullhead respawns and stabs Jack. Grace eventually overpowers him and beats Skullhead to death like a badass woman, which she is. This terrifies Jack, but hey, you know, your girl got the job done, so stop whining, bro. Grace confronts the cult, ready to shoot them down, but the cult master lifts her in the air, holding her up with another sprinkle of black magic. Jack frees Grace from the spell, and the two run through the house and into the backyard. He tells her to go on without him, and after a lot of pleading, Grace runs off, leaving Jack to fend for himself. Now he does his best, but is pretty quickly overpowered. This was probably not the best move, my guy. Now she, meanwhile, runs through the woods completely on her own, and then has some disturbing visions, again, that involve her getting pregnant with the demon while also being sacrificed herself. I mean, at least that's what I think is going on here. Well, after some wandering, she finds Jack tied up in the barn and the cult waiting for her. The cult master reveals her face and says that she is Grace's mother, and that Grace is a perfect vessel for their master, Uctina. She then starts the ritual, and Grace sees herself giving birth to the demon and also some snakes for just some good measure, I guess. They force her to drink a cup of blood. Duh, of course, it's a demon birth, and the transformation takes effect. Grace rises as Uctina, the cult bows before her, and the cult master is so moved, she tears up, pledging herself to Uctina's cause. Now the demon, Uctina or Uctena, I have no idea how to pronounce that, so please excuse me, folks. Well, she says nothing, right? She only looks at the cult master, who starts choking on blood suddenly.
There's no loyalty, none!
Grace blackbolts the rest of the cult away, then goes back to Jack, makes out with him for a bit, and then stabs him to death. Hell yeah. Grace, now definitely Uctina, wanders through the house, picks up a picture frame and looks at it. Now she actually saw this earlier on in the movie when they first arrived at the plantation, though it's unclear whether or not she remembers it or knew what it meant in the first place. Now Grace/Uctina walks to the edge of the property, hesitates for just a moment, then smiles as she crosses the threshold and is finally free to roam the world and unleash destruction to her heart's content. Well, perhaps she doesn't have a heart because it's a demon. Now this movie leaves us with more questions than we started, which I am not particularly fond of. If the cult master was Grace's mother, why did she send her away if the whole purpose of Grace's existence was to one day free Uctina? That doesn't make any sense. Now if someone freed Grace from the cult when she was a child, then who was it? If Frank was the one who freed her all those years ago, why would he bring her back now if he knew what was going to happen? And if he did free her, in fact, why did the cult wait so long to kill him? So many questions, so little answers. Now clearly the overall theme for this movie is finding home, and Grace is searching for a sense of belonging, which I guess resonates with most people. Now this is brought up multiple times through Grace and Jack's conversations, and she even mentions having grown up in foster care and foster homes. Now these are all things that tie up nicely later on in the movie when the cult master tries to entice her to be a willing vessel for Yuktina, seducing her with an all-powerful purpose that will take away her pain. I just wish the movie covered more of the backstory, right? And covered more of the technical aspects of how Grace got away from the cult in the first place. There's many things that are just untapped. What do you guys think? Do you think Grace knew all along what was going on? Did she even have a fair shot to defeat them? Or was it impossible because she was destined to be defeated by the demon itself? Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this one. A little bit more of a commentary style. We're gonna roll back to the old school beats in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. It's also me again on the mic. Perhaps we're gonna shoot some more different videos in the future. I have some ideas, but you know, let me know what you want to see. Let's do this, and thanks for watching as always. Take care, binge another one, and peace out.